Hey YouTube. Well, you can see today is a rather foggy day, and I call where we live the tundra zone because we're above the frost. We're above where a line where it's usually snow, the snow line, and below that is no snow in Pennsylvania here. So we're actually above that. But the thing is, today we're having freezing rain. And now it's starting to turn to rain, so it's sort of icy and slippery on the sawmill here, so I'm not going to cut today. But I do want to explain something. Looky here. If I measure this log, the log ends up being, say, 14 inches here, 15 inches down at the other end. But if you look down this log here, you can see there's about a 2-inch bend in the middle of the log. Okay, and I have the bends to the side. That side, if you look there, you can see it's wide on that side. It goes outward in the middle. When you measure, when you look at my cant sheet, let's see, for this size sheet, you're probably looking at, or this size log, you're looking at probably a 9-inch cant. Okay, what you want to do is try and figure out if the center of this tree, the center of this end, and the center of that end is going to put you in the center of the tree. Sometimes they don't. Okay, so we say that this is the center of the tree where the pith is, but technically it's not always in the center. I mean, if you look at that, it's a lot shorter distance here than it is here. So what you want to do is generally look at the log and try and find the straight line that's in it. For instance, to find a straight line on this, you'd actually have to come over here about 2 inches and then follow through, just missing this curve, and then you'll come into the log again about 2 inches down at the other end. Now a lot of times guys start to cut, they just bring the saw over, put it down here 1 inch and cut, and they end up running off out of the log before they ever get finished with cutting it. And when you do that, you're actually hurting your blade, because every time you run the saw blade on top of the saw, whenever you run the saw blade on top of the log, what's happening is the saw blade's running down here, and as it comes out, once it comes out, it's hard to get it back into the log again if the log has bumps and stuff in it, which this one obviously does. So it's not impossible, I'm just saying it's a little harder on the saw. And if you're going too fast, then you make it even worse, because wherever there's a bump, if you're going fast, sometimes the saw will tend to ride up on the bump, as opposed to when you cut into the log, the wood above and below the log is actually helping to hold the saw blade where it is. You know, depending upon how sharp it is, that can overcome that, but that's generally what happens with, once you start the saw. Just like a hand saw, once you get the cut started, the saw is going to stay and follow whatever path it's going to follow, depending upon how straight you hold the blade. So, what does this mean then? Well, what I'm getting at here is, because that log down at that end, not only does it have a kink this way, but it also has a kink upward. It rises up higher than what this end does by about 1 inch. So this is where, when you start to cut, you want to take your time with the saw. Instead of marking off a cant, somebody had asked me one time, can't you just take a square piece, like a 9x9 square, lay it over there and mark it off? Yes, you can do that, but you're going to have the tendency to want to put it in the center of this. Cutting in the center of that does not always mean you're going to be in the center at the other end. Okay? So you might, that's why when you see me cut cants and I say a cant's going to be a 9-inch cant or a 10-inch cant, sometimes it falls a little short, and sometimes it ends up being like, instead of a 9-inch, it might be an 8x10-inch. It all depends on what the log is doing. Now, if you've ever watched videos where they show guys cutting logs at a real big sawmill, high production place, you'll see that they use lasers. What do you think that laser's for? That laser is a visual guide for what I just said. Okay? It's a visual guide. So, you don't need a laser, though, to have that. And I thought about, I have a couple different types of lasers, and I have got some good construction lasers that could put light on this during the daylight, you're looking at probably $1,500 or more for a laser that's going to give you a light that you can see during the day. I have one, but it doesn't help you as far as I'm concerned, because I can figure out what I just got done telling you about faster than I can, you know, look at the laser and have it tell me what it's trying to tell me. Only because, like, those guys are able to roll the log quicker. Rolling the log for me is sort of a hassle because I have to do it manually. But anyway, you can see how this log, you know, comes up at this end. So since it does that, you want to start down there taking off as small a piece as you can, like 1 inch at a time, rather than trying to just get right to the cant, which might take you down a couple inches over here. So in other words, like I say, if this cant is supposed to be down here, let's say that's where the cant's going to start to get you a square, you don't want to start right at that line. What you want to do is start up here, about come an inch down from the bark, and see what that does to you. You can also take the Woodmizer, if you don't feel like measuring, you can take the Woodmizer, move it up, set the blade down, and find the lowest spot of the tree. Like, let's say that this would be the lowest spot. In other words, the lowest compared to a level line. If this is the lowest spot, all you do is read the reading on your Woodmizer. Let's say you brought it over here and set it up here and it said 16 inches. Let's say it says 17 down there, and it might say 17 up here. Well then, if you cut a 16-inch mark, you know you're going to come out of the log down here. Alright? So what you want to do is take the lowest part of the log that your Woodmizer blade, or any small mill, whatever your blade height is, and go down an inch from the lowest point. Alright? So if this is the lowest point right in here, then if it's 16 inches, I would drop down to 15 inches and start my cut. That's one way of making sure you don't ride out of the log, okay, and you get a full-size piece. Because all those little pieces, they're not good for firewood or anything. In fact, the bark, whenever you see me splitting wood, I usually take the bark and throw it in the woods, because it'll rot in the woods over time and feed the trees that are around it and whatever else is growing there. So yeah, I was going to do some cutting. I even set some extra logs over here to be able to cut them. They're all about the same. They're very nice logs. But I don't know, the rain is between the ice and the rain, I just don't want to be slipping and breaking my neck here. So I thought I'd do the video about explaining about this cut. And then as far as, like, if you look, there's a check in here. Oh, this is very icy. There's a check there. You can see it there. Now that's basically vertical. If you come over here and look at this, this check is going the opposite way, sort of. So, you know, the check's not going to really matter here much. I mean, if you look at it, it's very tight. It's tight. It tends to come apart a little bit more in the middle. I would say that that check's probably not going to go in there more than a couple of inches. Both of them, the way they look to me. So we'll see what happens. It looks like this tree had a nice branch here, and they cut it off when they were delimbing. So if there's a branch on here, this might be an interesting looking feature to this wood when you open it up. Guys, like I said the other day, I'm fortunate to have red oak because it's an expensive wood and you can get some good money for it. I gotta tell you, I was watching N.W. Sawyer. Not sure where he's from exactly, but I'll tell you, this guy's got a good eye for some very nice looking wood. I mean, he's cut some walnut. Now, because I was a builder, I'm into nominal size lumber. I like 1x12, 1x10, 1x, but he's more like looking at it as an artist would look at wood, and boy, he's got some nice looking wood there. So if you get a chance, check out his channel as well, because really, I saw some cherry last night when I was watching his video. I couldn't believe the cherry's that nice, because I haven't cut any cherry yet, and I have cherry coming this week. Apparently, if it rains, I won't get it this week, but it should come this week if the loggers can get out. So, alright guys, well that's about all I wanted to do for today. And you can see my camera's getting, I don't know if you can see it, but the screen's all wet. So I'll talk to you later, and I hope you understand what I said here. If you have any questions, you know, with what I've been saying, or same thing with the spreadsheet. If you haven't gotten a spreadsheet from me and you've asked for one, ask again, because I sent all the ones out that I had email addresses for. You do need to send me your email address, though. Just, you can put it in the comments. Okay? Ay, 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 this weather's unbelievable. I got so much work to do and I just can't get to it. Have a good one, guys. Bye. Hey YouTube, I was over at Jim's place, and he has some corn out for the squirrels. And this was laying on the ground by the corn. Now it's obvious these deer are stealing corn. Pretty neat though, right? I was teaching Bullseye how to smell this, hoping that he would go and get some for me. I have to take him out when it's nice and see what's what. Hey you two, I thought that this was interesting. I was sharpening this blade, and if you look down on the floor there, let me just put my foot by it so I can find it. Where the heck is this thing? Here, right there. That's the weld spot where the blade was welded. Now what I found funny about this is up on the top here, this looks like a weld spot. 1, 2, and there's 3 of them there, okay? But believe it or not, they're actually bent. The blade is bent there. When you rub your hand over it, when you rub your hand over this, you can feel the difference in the change of direction. It's pronounced. It's not like a smooth circle. Now this blade took a beating. It had gotten dull. I hit something in the log, and I have a problem with my hearing high pitch tones, so I don't hear the nail strike, but I do hear bass tones. Doesn't help me with the sawmill much, but I don't hear the saw blade hitting the nails and stuff. And what happened was this blade hit a nail, and then I didn't hear it, and I figured I'd gonna wind through it as quick as I could. And you notice these 3 spots, one there, and one here, and they almost look like the weld. Now if you look underneath it, there's nothing there, so it's not anything on the inside. But I'm wondering how this mark came here, because there's nothing that small of a diameter that's running that would cause that, unless somehow or another catching the blade in the wood, because after I went through the nail, the blade didn't want to cut and I was forcing it. I think that because there was tension on the blade, it literally kinked the blade in these 3 places within the guards. I think it pushed the blade hard enough to kink it. What's your thought on that? 1, 2, 3 of them. And if you look at it, I don't know if I can get you a good view here, but you can actually see, like right there, you can see there's a bend right here. You can see there's a bend there, and it's not really a curve, like a nice curve like the blades are. I'm going to try this thing and see what happens. I'll use it on one of the first cuts so I don't wreck any of the good wood. I think I'll try it tomorrow if it stops raining.